Hey, this is Chazz Moretti, and you're listening to Wrestling Nostalgia.
Greetings and welcome to Wrestling Nostalgia. I am your host, Dave Dynasty. Thank you for joining us. Now, usually I open up the podcast and I like to reflect and talk about some pertinent wrestling news, something that is of interest to me and I think will be of interest to my listeners. But we're going to do something a little different on this episode. This episode is being released on Monday, October 4th. And yesterday, on October 3rd, that was our 5-year anniversary of the very first podcast that Ike and I released. Of course, at that time, it was called the Dave Dynasty Show. We've since kind of refocused and rebranded. Everybody knows all about that. But 5 years. Now, you know, we've had times where we haven't released episodes. We haven't released an episode every week, but this is our 182nd episode. So we've done pretty damn good in that 5 years. I mean, that's a pretty good average there. And that's a long time. It's a lot of episodes. And I just want to reflect a little bit because I really appreciate and enjoy the things that the podcast has brought to me. It has enabled me to talk to a lot of people that I never thought I would get a chance to talk to. A lot of people that I have admired and looked up to in my life as a wrestling fan. It's really, I've got to meet a lot of people. I've got to go to a lot of events. I've got to review books for publishers. I've got to vote in the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame. Lots of things that, I really just never thought, would be something that would present itself to me. Even though I was involved in the wrestling business, right? I was a manager, I was a wrestler, I have promoted shows, I've done things like that. And those things provided me a lot of opportunity too, but those days are behind me. And so I kind of thought maybe, that some of those opportunities that the door was closed on, but the podcast has really provided a lot of opportunities for me, and I am grateful for that. And I very much enjoy the podcast. And and at times when you do something like this, it does get to be where it feels like a burden. And I don't mean that in a hugely bad way. It's one of those deals where you're trying to squeeze in time to edit or record or do an interview, and you're trying to work it in regular life, because this is not my job, right? It's not what I do as a career. And so sometimes it does feel like that, but 99% of the time it is really enjoyable. And in those times I'm very self-aware. At those times when it becomes kind of a burden or when it feels a little overwhelming, that's those times where I step back and we take a week or two off. And we lighten things up, because I feel it's very important not to get burned out and not to let it be overwhelming. I hope you guys have enjoyed what we've done here for this 5 years. And I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys on what you've enjoyed most, what your favorite interviews have been over the years, and things like that. We've got a lot that I hope to do and accomplish. There's no intent to stop this and continue on. I hope in 5 more years we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. But I'd like to hear what you've enjoyed most in these 5 years. That would be, it'd be fun for me to hear, and I'd love some feedback. So, but again, we've got another episode for you today, another free episode. We will talk here in a bit about the ways you can help support the show and keep it free. That's in our second plug of the show coming on later. But we have an interview with Chazz Moretti, who is a wrestling agent / manager. And I always love it when we have managers on. It is very dear to my heart, because I started in the wrestling business as a manager, and I did that. And I think that is, outside of some of my promoting and booking stuff that I really enjoyed, I think when my time as a manager was my most enjoyable. And I did all the textbook stuff that a heel manager does. I was, did a deal where I was in a diaper and where I was in a dress, and I ate the dog food, and I was confined to a dog cage, and I was handcuffed to so and so, and people got 5 minutes with me after match. I did all those things, right? All those, your typical gimmicks, and I loved every minute of it. And I got to interact and work with a lot of great people, some that I consider friends, even to this day. And it's been a long, long time. I mean, that was, we're talking nearly 20 years ago, right? 15 years ago, something like that. 15, 16 years ago. So it's been a long time, really. And so when we have managers on the show, that's very dear to me, right? I feel like the art of managing is kind of lost. I know AEW uses them. I don't think they utilize them in a great way, but I think the true art of having managers is lost, and I hope that it continues to come back, and I hope it becomes more prominent again, because I think it's a very, very valuable tool in wrestling, because you have guys who in the ring are talented, they have the look, they have the skills, they have whatever, but they can't talk, right? And that's a manager. That's where they come in, right? And they're able to do that, and they're able to help get heat and different things like that. And so, again, like I said, when we have a manager on, it's very dear to me, and I very much appreciate it. And I try to seek those people out that I feel like are doing a good job of bringing the art of managing back to professional wrestling. And I try to have them on the show, and Chazz is one of those guys. Ike interviewed him. It was a great interview, and I really appreciate and enjoy the fact that he's on the show. And I hope you will too. So let's take a break. In our first plug here, we'll tell you all about how you can follow us on social media. So make sure you do that, please, because we have lots of great conversations. I share lots of great things out there. So make sure you hit those up and follow us. That way you can stay attuned to everything that we do here in Wrestling Nostalgia and the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network. So we'll take a break. You'll hear about that. And when we come back, Ike will have that interview with Chazz Moretti. So stick around. Be sure to follow the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network and all of the participating podcasts on social media. The easiest way to find us is on Twitter. You can follow the network at WrestlePods, and you can find all the individual shows at their Twitter accounts. You can find the Wrestling Nostalgia Show at Wrestle Nostalgia, the Ring a Ding Dong Dandy Podcast at Stampede Pod, and the Wild Men Podcast at Wild Men Podcast. Also search us on Facebook for pages and groups. Participate, interact, join the network, and be a fan. Thank you for your support.
And welcome back to the Wrestling Nostalgia Show. I am your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and I am joined with manager Chazz Moretti. How are we doing today?
I'm doing okay, but I got to correct you on something. You kind of insulted me a little bit just now by calling me a manager. Well, let me explain something to you. A manager is a filthy, disgusting, flesh-eating parasite, the likes I will never fully explain to you. I'm an agent.
Absolutely, sir. Very apologetic about that. So let me redo that. Introducing the agent, Chazz Moretti.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Well, Chazz, we're going to go ahead and jump right into this. First and foremost, as some folks may be able to hear, you're from Chicago, correct? Tell us a little bit about the wrestling scene up north.
Yeah, I was born in New York City. We moved to Chicago in 1976. My father was in business with my uncle. They owned a construction company and a couple of other different businesses, and they moved businesses from New York to Chicago. And so we've been in Chicago since 76. So it was kind of interesting because you talk about nostalgia. When I was little, I was a WWF fan. My dad took me to the Garden a couple of times, and we got to see superstar Billy Graham cut his famous promo that wound up being filmed in black and white for some reason. But that promo, the "Don't Touch Me" promo, as I call it, that one I actually saw live, which was kind of cool. And we moved here to Chicago, and then we got to see the AWA. We got to see WWA with Bruiser and Crusher, and I've been going on ever since with it. So it's all good. I mean, as far as what independent wrestling up in Chicago, it's thriving. I mean, there's a lot of different federations, or I should say promotions. There are a lot of promotions, and they range from smaller promotions that have a more limited roster to larger operations like POW Entertainment, AAW, Warrior Wrestling, little bit north of the border in Milwaukee is Bruce City Championship Wrestling, Bruce City Wrestling with Frank DeFalco. So there's the promotion that I'm currently working for, which runs out of the Berwyn Eagles Club, is Squared Circle Megastars. So I mean, there's just a ton of promotions. There's a ton of wrestling entertainment for fans, and there's work for workers if they're willing to put in the time and they're willing to, do what the fans pay for, which is to wrestle and to provide entertainment.
Absolutely. And yeah, Chicago's an amazing area. I mean, just in general, there's a lot of really great stuff to do there. But also the wrestling is phenomenal. So I guess if anybody out there has never been to Chicago, make a trip. But
absolutely. And do it before the wintertime, because unless you like cold weather, unless you want summertime for Eskimos, you don't want to come to Chicago between December and March.
Yes, absolutely. I can attest to that one. I went to Chicago a couple Februarys ago, and it was breezy. Let me tell you.
Oh yeah, I had to do the Birmingham run. I was working some shows down in Birmingham, and it was December. It was snowing up here, and by the time we got to Indianapolis, it was 65 degrees, and I'm like, I'm not going back. I'm staying.
Oh man. And as I say, the further you get south, especially down around Alabama, Birmingham, oh man, that's where the real heat hits, man. Let me tell you.
Oh, we got down to Birmingham. It was in the 70s, and I had a light jacket on. Some old man cornered me at a gas station and said, "Aren't you cold?" I'm like, "No, this is summer weather."
Right. You're like, "Hey, from Chicago, this is hot, man. Let me tell you." Oh Lord.
Like, again, going along with the wrestling, I was very fortunate. Back in July, I got to work a weekend loop in Memphis for Pro Wrestling Mid-South, which is run by Greg Anthony. And that was a great experience to work Memphis. So much nostalgia down there, so much history.
That's what I was going to say, too. Memphis is, I mean, obviously Memphis is great just in general, but, there's a lot of deep-rooted history there, especially within wrestling. It's pretty great.
Yeah, we had a show on Friday. We had a show on Friday night in Dyersburg, and then we had a show. The show on Friday was in Ripley. Then we had a show on Saturday in Dyersburg at the Herb Welch Sportsplex. I mean, you can't get any more historic than that building.
Right.
Then you've got Bruno as the special referee. I mean, come on, it's if you're not going back to 80s Memphis, 90s Memphis, then you just don't know what you're doing down there.
That's right. That is absolutely right. Good Lord. I say Dave loves Memphis wrestling. Oh man, he's done many a podcast episode about that, let me tell you.
Oh, absolutely.
But oh man, all right. So re-rail this train here. So Chazz, let me ask you. Talked a little bit about wrestling, kind of the wrestling scene in Chicago, where you're from. But tell us a little bit about what childhood was like for Chazz. What was the upbringing like for the wonderful agent that you are today?
Well, when I was younger, when I was a young boy, we didn't have the luxury of the internet, which was a good thing, I think, in a way. We didn't have cable until '83, so we didn't get to see any other promotions than what was in your region or what was in your territory. And like I said, starting out, as a very young child, I got to see the WWF. So I got to see Bruno and High Chief Peter Maivia, Superstar Billy Graham, who I am a gigantic fan of to this day. And Superstar is right now at the Mayo Clinic with congestive heart failure, so all the best to the Superstar. But we got to see them all. We got to see Backlund and the Valiant Brothers, who I got a big kick out of. And then moving to Chicago, and then we got to see Gagne and Bockwinkel and Bobby Heenan, Bruiser and Crusher. Got to see the Valiants again when they moved over here, which was awesome. Being in this area is where I got my first glimpse of Bruiser Brody. And you didn't know what to think of Bruiser Brody. I mean, here's a guy it's like a wild man until they put the microphone in front of him, and then he's articulate as all get out. And it's like, really? So I mean, then we had the magazines. I didn't know Dusty Rhodes had a lisp until 1984. Because up until then, I didn't see Dusty. We read about him in the magazines. We read about Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk Jr. and Terry Funk and everybody else that was in the East Coast and Southeast and the guys on the West Coast. We were Monday nights on the Spanish channel. We would sit there trying. Well, we actually had a crash course in Spanish, watching the matches from the Olympic Auditorium, and that was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun seeing a very young Roddy Piper.
Oh wow, yeah, I bet.
Then cable popped up, and when cable popped up, I was in high school when cable popped up, and there were on any Saturday you would have WWF, AWA, World Class Championship Wrestling. Then you'd have Polynesian Pro, which was Leah Maiavia's promotion out in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. Then at night you'd have Memphis. And then the wrap-up show with Joe Pedicino would cover everything else. And, of course, you had the 605 Live with WCW. So, I mean, on a Saturday, when you're 14, 15, 16 years old, yeah, I wasn't going anywhere. I was going to television from 10 in the morning until 11 at night.
Hey, man, that's the way to do it right there. That is the way to do it.
And joking around a little bit with you with the intro, I was always enamored with the managers. I was always in awe of the guy who could talk people into the building and make you just want to kill him. I'm talking about guys like Bobby Heenan. God, there was Crybaby Cannon. Major Duke George was another one that I used to get a kick out of. Eddie Creechman. Later on, Saul Creechman, who's actually a very close friend of mine. Jimmy Hart as a young manager. Jim Cornette first starting out. It was always good to see. And then, as cable progressed, you got to see J.J. Dillon and Paul Jones and a bunch of others. And so it was an interesting time to grow up. And, one of the businesses that my uncle owned was a sports agency. So me being an agent actually was legit because he owned an agency and I started working for him as I was going through college. And then I became an agent when I got out of college. And I helped to manage various athletes and their contracts. And confidentiality precludes me from actually mentioning who I had worked with, so I can't do that. But I worked together with my uncle for his agency. And in 2010, I got a call from Melanie Cruz, who needed representation while she was working independent promotions in Illinois, especially with POW Entertainment. And I made an appearance with her in November of 2010. I just basically walked her to the ring for her match at their largest show of the year, which is called Wrestle Rage. And their promoter, Jimmy Blaze, puts on just a phenomenal show. I mean, they've been consistently doing sellout crowds even through the pandemic. They had to shift venues a little bit, but whatever. It didn't stop them. And their show Wrestle Rage at the time was at the Odeum. So there's 1,700 people. And, when I hit the curtain, originally I was just gonna take care of Mel's contracts and handle things behind the scenes. But when I walked her down the ring and hit the curtain, I said, I think it's time for me to come out front and make sure that, you're not getting the shaft and make sure that you're getting everything you're entitled to. So did I become a manager? Yeah, I guess you could say I became a manager, for lack of a better term, but I still prefer to refer to myself as an agent because that's what I do. I handle contracts, I handle bookings, I handle merchandising, and, I'm still at ringside handling business too.
Wow. So, I mean, first and foremost, I was actually, one of my questions I was going to ask you was, how did you get your foot in the business? What made you want to do this? But, you literally read my mind. So,
it was an accident.
Right.
And I've been fortunate. I've managed a lot of people that were either top stars that were transitioning down or at the tail end of their career, and people that were up and coming that are now, sitting in major promotions. One of the people that I look back at managing fondly was Saraya Knight. Saraya Knight came here in 2011, 2012, and I was fortunate enough to manage her. And it was kind of funny because when I met her at Shimmer and we worked out the deal, her daughter was with her, and she was a very young 17-year-old Brittany Knight, who later became Paige. And, you know, I've managed Adam Pearce. I've managed Steve Marino. I've managed, Allison Kay was someone that I had a lot of fun managing. And then I've managed against and, you know, got seasoning and learned from just a ton of people, from Rikishi to Hacksaw Jim Duggan to Funaki, PG-13, Serena Deeb. I mean, you know, it's not that I really don't want to sound like I'm name dropping. It's just that I've been fortunate enough to share the ring with some of the best that have been in the business, and, you know, a lot of up and coming stars. And I always say this in my promos: I can take any wrestler and make him into a contender. I can take a viable contender and make them into a champion. And once they reach championship status, staying with me and working with me, I can make them a legend. And I live by that model.
No, absolutely. And if I may, I mean, you kind of, I hate when people say like, "Oh, I don't want to name drop," but like, to me, it's like when you talk about who you worked with and who you have represented, I feel like people think that they're being like, what's the word? They're being braggadatory or braggadocious, but nah, man, I want to know who you worked for, because especially for potential talent out there, it's like a resume. They need to know what they're getting themselves into,
Just recently in July, we had the opportunity. I represented the Italian American Heritage Champion, Joey the Pitbull Chichi, and I took him down to Memphis, and we challenged Greg Anthony for his Mid-South Undisputed title, his unified title. And Greg Anthony was a former 3-time NWA national champion. And so, I mean, we had a match with Greg, and we came out on the short side of the draw there. We actually things didn't go our way, but what Greg didn't understand is he didn't read the contract. In order for him to claim the Italian American Heritage Championship, he had to be either Italian or Italian American, which he's not either. So he actually had to give the belt back the next night. He wasn't too happy about that. But as I told him, rules are rules.
I mean, that's right. Rules are indeed rules. Good Lord. See, and that's the reason why you need an agent. You need someone to be able to put those things into action and work those technicalities, right?
Well, I mean, here, you know what? If someone isn't smart enough to read the contract all the way through, it's not my problem.
That's true. I got to agree with you there.
It's kind of funny. Back in 2012, I figured out a way to make Melanie Cruz and her tag team partner, Taylor Made, the first and only women's tag team to ever hold the POW Entertainment Tag Team Championship. And I did it with the stroke of a pen. And I'll tell you how I did it. They had a deal where a wrestler would win what was called the keys to the kingdom, which means it was like Money in the Bank. It was a guaranteed title shot to be cashed in at your disposal. Well, the gentleman that owned the keys to the kingdom at that time was Rough Crossing, who I've also managed with and managed against, and he's a phenomenal talent. Well, his manager, the notorious Nick H., wasn't in the building the night that I made the deal, so I just basically cut a check for about $25,000 and bought the keys to the tag team kingdom. 2 months later, there's a big 3-way tag team match, and I let the 3 teams that were in it. I let the Raw Bone Roughnecks, and I let the team called Picture Perfect and the champion Psychotic Rage. I let them all beat the hell out of each other until Psychotic Rage was laid out, and then I brought the girls out and cashed in the key. The girls did a Captain Morgan pin on Psychotic Rage, got the 1, 2, 3, we got the belts. And it was kind of funny because Nick H. was in attendance that night, and he looked at me and he goes, "How did you do it? What did you do? How did you do it?" I said, "Never send a boy to negotiate with a man. You should have been here." And then
Wow.
the voice from Picture, you can't do this. Why not? Well, we're picture perfect. I said, yeah, and I'm flipping rich. Have a nice day, boys. And we walked out to a huge party, and the girls had they had to do a mandatory return match with Psychotic Rage, and I made sure that they didn't lose that night, because once the count was about to come down, I broke up the pin and brought out two of my other clients, and we did the beat down and whatnot, and it went from there. I mean, things went sideways with the girls later on that year, and I wound up keeping the belts under it was a modified version of the Freebird rule. I call it the Moretti rule, and I wound up having Vic Capri, who's a well-established star in Chicago, and Malad Akbar had them defend the titles until the following March. And then we got screwed. What else is new?
Right. You're not wrong there. Wow. So, I mean,
Jamie Dundee and Wolfie D, PG-13, and I haven't forgiven him yet.
they say, what is it they say? Never forgive, never forget.
Oh, exactly. And then there's Jessica DeBody used to always say, win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat.
That's right. That is right. Those are words to live by. Well, hey, so we've kind of established, I feel like, your work in the business, your upbringing in the business, if you will, and sort of, I guess, your history and your past, and even some of your present. But something I'm curious about, because obviously, as what the business would consider a manager, being a manager is one thing, but did you ever want to wrestle? Was that ever something that crossed your mind? Because I know some folks did, but
Of course it was. But by the time I got in the business, I was 43 years old. I got started late. I was 43 years old, and I was 325 pounds. I was grossly out of shape. But that didn't stop me. I mean, I've actually wrestled in 5 matches in my career. 4 of them were tag matches, and 1 was a singles match. Because, like I said, as things broke down between Melanie Cruz and Taylor Made, I wound up getting involved, and the blow-off to the feud was actually Melanie Cruz against myself in a Fans Bring the Weapons match, which was an interesting evening, to say the least. Translation, I didn't win.
I was going to say, I would assume that that's what that meant, but
I lost.
But hey, at least you can say that you lost to some talent that you chose to represent. So at least they were good, right?
Absolutely. One thing I pride myself on is my look. I've always I started out wearing the very best Italian-made business suits. And then you start getting, I know it's the sincerest form of flattery, but you start getting the wannabes that think that they can go to Walmart or Kohl's and buy a cheap $100 suit, put on a pair of gas station sunglasses, and go, "Oh, I'm a manager. Oh, I'm better than Chazz Moretti." No, you're not. No, you're not. You're a cheap knockoff wannabe in a pair of glasses and a cheap suit. You're not me. So what did I go and do about 5 years ago? I went and commissioned a tailor out in Encino, California, to make me sequins jackets. And at one time, I had like 8 of them. And I was wearing sequins before they came back in style. Now everybody and their uncle's wearing sequins. So what did I go and do? I went to Rome. I actually contacted my contacts in Rome, and I contacted my other contacts in Milan, and I've got 6 Italian-made sharkskin suits on the way in that are not on the market. They are custom made for me. So again, one of the things that I pride myself on is my professional look. My persona is me. Okay? I hate when people go, "Oh, I'm just playing bad guy wrestler." Look, I don't play. This is a business to me. This is how I make money. This is how I stay in a lifestyle that I'm accustomed. And I'm a spoiled brat. I like the finer things in life. So I'm not playing. And I'm be damned if I'm going to let anybody copy my look or try to cosplay me. That's not going to happen.
That's right. You can't cosplay greatness. Cannot cosplay greatness.
But don't they try?
They sure do.
I got to shake my head when they get out there and you get one of these rookies that'll come and talk to me about wanting me to manage them and whatnot. And I say, all right, well, tell me about yourself. What's your persona? Oh, I do a lot of different things, man. I try to be part Roddy Piper and part Jeff Hardy. I says, and you're none of yourself. Thanks for calling. Not interested. I mean,
Thanks
honestly, you take a look at the true stars of our business right now, and I'm going to name one name. MJF. Mr. Friedman gets it. He's not trying to be Chris Jericho. He's not trying to be Nick Bockwinkel. He's not trying to be Ric Flair. He's trying to be Maxwell Friedman. And he is the very best right now, in my opinion.
I've seen him in action a handful of times. And I gotta say he is certainly something to behold. So yeah, I can't say anything there.
He asked me a question and said, Chazz, who would you like to manage right now? Anybody in the world. My first choice is MJF.
Wow. Anybody in the world, MJF.
As far as a tag team would be concerned, the UK Hooligans. Zach and Roy Knight, yeah, I'll manage those boys.
Well, hey, if anybody who he just named is listening, hit him up. I mean, that's what Absolutely. This is for.
I travel the country. I travel the world. I don't have any qualms about driving 8, 9, 10 hours to make an appearance, as long as the money's right.
Of course. Money's always got to be right.
But again, I laugh at these kids that go, man, I can't go to this. I can't make that show. Why not? Well, it's like 3 hours away. Awesome. So if Vince McMahon called you and said he wants you in St. Louis tomorrow, you wouldn't do it? Oh, I think, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. Make your mind up. Come back and call me.
Good Lord. All right. So to not to derail too much and to move into it moved into a slightly different topic.
That's
but
okay.
I feel like
focus.
But I feel like you'll have a pretty good insight into this one. Like I say, we talked a lot about you as a manager, but now we need to talk about the term manager just in general within the business. And you've even kind of said that there are a lot of phonies out there who just try and cosplay and they all of that good stuff.
Apart for you into 4 different categories. There are 4 different types of managers. There is the valet, which is a female manager. Now, any female that claims to be a valet, but yet just walks out to ringside and stands there like a stone, is not a valet. A valet is someone who's not afraid to get involved when the need arises. And I think, one of the best valets right now and or female managers in the business right now is probably, I would have to say it would be, actually, no, I'm not going to say Eva Marie because I'm not impressed with her yet. Probably Vicky Guerrero. I mean, for all her braggadociousness and her silliness, she'll still get involved when she needs to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on the independent side, there's a girl that works out of New York, Nia Kennedy. She's phenomenal. And again, she's not afraid. She's definitely not afraid to throw a sidekick at somebody. That's who I would consider to be, what a female manager is. And then you've got your hype men that are basically going to come out there and just, as I like to call it, be the Drew Bundini to the Muhammad Ali. And Leo Rush was great at that. I mean, as far as being a hype man, Leo Rush was excellent. As you get no better hype man than that. I mean, the ultimate hype man was Bobby Davis. Without Bobby Davis, none of us that consider ourselves managers or agents would ever exist. He was the innovator. He was the legend. And, he happened to pass last year. So, all Godspeed, all the best, Bobby Davis. But without you, there's no manager. And then you've got your female, you've got your hype man, you've got your what I like to call the guiding light. So you've got your older gentleman that was a wrestler that is now, stepping away from active in ring, but yet wanting to stay active in the business. And then you've got your agent. You've got your real time manager. And one of my influences in terms of that is Paul Ellering. Paul handled everything for the Road Warriors, from bookings to investments to their air, their travel, negotiating contracts, the whole 9 yards. That's what I do. I am a full service, hands-on agent. I handle everything in the back room, and I'm at ringside. And I'm not afraid to get involved because my athletic background is in boxing. I was an amateur back in my teenage years and early 20s, and my record was a very well done 111-3-1 with 78 knockouts. So I'm not afraid to get in and throw hands.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, as any manager, like you said, you cannot be afraid to jump in when you need to.
Oh, you know what? I'm equal opportunity. If I'm managing a male wrestler, I got no problem getting involved. If I'm managing a female wrestler, I got no problem getting involved. Okay, the girls want to get in that ring. They get laid on a rope. They want to get sideways with me. I have no problem popping them. And I know the feminist crew is going to say, you can't hit a woman. And then I said out, and I always shoot back with this following statement. I would never hit a woman, but I'll beat a bitch's ass.
I guess that's fair.
But again, that's why I got respect amongst the females in the business, because I treated them like anybody else.
Right.
I treated them like professionals. I did what I had to do to make sure that my client either won or didn't get screwed. And I know this all, it all comes off as sounding arrogant and braggadocious, but the reality is I'm confident in what I do. I know what I bring to the table, and I'm proud of what I accomplished. And no one can take that away from me. And if anybody doesn't like it, too bad. If any of these so-called workers have a problem with the fact that Chazz Moretti is not afraid to tell you that he is what he is one of the best at what he does, that's your problem, not mine. Because you don't have enough money to rent space in my brain.
I'm gonna have to use that one. You don't got enough money to rent space in my brain. I'm gonna have to use that one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Blessing.
Absolutely. Oh Lord. So to kind of work off of what you're already talking about, because you're talking about these different types of managers, the different roles that they fulfill, whether for good or for bad, of course. Managers are almost a forgotten role. I feel like there's not really a whole lot out there, and the ones that are there are not utilized as much. And this one's going to be more of an opinion from you here, but AEW has seemed to use managers on TV, but they're underutilized. Do you see this as like a first step through, as like a first step in things to improving managers in wrestling, or what do you think about the role that managers take nowadays in wrestling?
I like the fact that AEW is using managers,
right?
But they're using only guiding lights. They're using only well-established older wrestlers that are trying to impart their knowledge on the younger generation. Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Jake the Snake Roberts. I mean, these were all great wrestlers who are now imparting their knowledge on their clients. And again, that's only one category of manager.
Right.
They haven't seen an agent. They haven't seen someone like me. So I would welcome the opportunity if the opportunity ever presented itself. The same thing with the WWE. I mean, Leo Rush was a hype man. Excellent. Ricardo Rodriguez was a personal ring announcer that got involved. Perfect. No problem. I think the closest thing they have to an agent type manager in WWE is probably MVP. MVP is definitely someone that I look at when he's out there and say, yeah, that guy gets it. He's good. And then people go, oh, well, you think at 50, at almost 54 years old, you'll get called up to the national promotions? I don't know. I'd welcome the opportunity if they did. And if they don't, then I'm going to do what I've been doing. And I'm going to do my thing and manage my clients and make a lot of money and probably piss people off all over the country and all over the world. And I'll do it at the territory. I still like to believe that the territories aren't dead. They're just called independents. Now, some independents are more in line with the old territory system. Others are mud shows. I don't work the mud shows.
I gotta ask, what's a mud show?
A mud show is a bunch of guys that 2 weeks ago were wrestling in their backyards that figured out, we could set up folding chairs and sell tickets and call ourselves a wrestling promotion. That's a mud show. I don't work mud shows. I don't work with untrained wrestlers. I don't work with, so-and-so's cousin's boyfriend's roommate. I'm a professional.
Hey, fair enough. And yeah, there certainly are a lot of mud shows. I'm gonna have to use that one too. And
Jimmy Cornette coined that phrase. He called it outlaw mud shows. So that's in deference to James E. That was his phrase. But I like using it because he's right. That's what they are.
Hey,
this problem, at least up in Illinois, was the dismantling back in the 90s, the dismantling of the Illinois State Athletic Commission. Because the Athletic Commission kept everybody in line. Promotions had to make sure that they ran things tight and right. Wrestlers and managers had to make sure that they weren't on drugs, that they were physically fit, that they were healthy enough to be in the ring and at ringside. The last thing you want is some guy catching a heart attack and dying in your ring. Or some untrained idiot getting in your ring thinking he can copy what he saw in a video game and hurting somebody. I mean, that's what separates professionals from the outlaws. And I don't work with the outlaws.
Hey, that's 100% fair, man. But I'm going to have to use that moving forward. Mud shows, man. So I feel like we've gotten to know, I feel like we've really had I would say a very deep understanding now of Chazz Moretti, and we have a very deep understanding of your upbringing in wrestling, what you do in wrestling, who you are as a manager. But I got to ask, you got to have fans out there. I'm sure you have a lot of enemies, but I'm sure you have a lot of fans too. So what's one thing that maybe your fans don't know about you?
The one thing that my fans don't know about me is that I played semi-pro soccer for 29 years before I got involved in wrestling. I played semi-pro soccer from the age of 14 to the age of 42.
Damn.
Almost 43. I had left in August. I was 43 in August. In September, I had left. I had played my last season, and 2 months later, I appeared with Melanie Cruz at Wrestle Rage. So, yeah, I played competitive soccer for 29 seasons, and people don't really know about it. I don't talk too much about it. It was my first sporting passion along with boxing, but it was definitely my team passion. And it's a goalkeeper. So I was one of those crazy fools in the back that would just throw his body all over the place.
Wow. I mean, and soccer is no joke, man. Soccer is no joke. I mean, that's got to be part of the reason why you have some of the athleticism that kind of bleeds into wrestling.
Oh, definitely. And, you don't, as a goalkeeper, you're not allowed to have fear.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I used to pride my ability to go to a one-on-one challenge with a striker, and, you get some guy coming into the 18-yard box, and I'd go out to meet him. Next thing you know, I'm sliding on my side, and he's on a one-on-one, and I'm picking the ball off his foot. And your eyes and your head is like 3 inches, literally, from a guy swinging his foot to launch a ball, and you're snagging the ball away from him. And I used to do that, and I'd laugh at him. And he'd get upset. I had one kid one time tell me he was gonna make a fool out of me. So he came through the area for a cross, and I laid him out. I got my right fist to the ball, and my left fist to his head. and he went down like a shot. And I stood over him, I looked at him, I said, did that hurt? Because it was real painful from where I was standing.
Damn. Yeah, no.
Very much. I had a big mouth. Whatever.
Right. Good Lord. Hey, that's pretty cool though. I mean, soccer. Oh man, I love soccer. I'd say me and Dave on occasion we'll go watch a soccer match or do something like that. So that's awesome, man. That is awesome.
I was a season ticket holder for the Fire back in 95, 96.
Say that one more time. I did not catch that at all. It went in one ear, out the other.
When the Chicago Fire had opened up their first seasons in Chicago, I was a season ticket holder for them.
No kidding.
In fact, little known fact, and the boys that were on the team would kid with me at meet and greets. The Fire were 15-1 underdogs to win the title their first year. I put $10,000 on them in Vegas at the beginning of the season. I collected $150,000 on the Chicago Fire that year because they won the MLS title in their first year.
Wow, that's a hell of a payout.
Oh, here, you're gonna do something, do it right. The reason why I'm successful in wrestling is because I don't stop until I reach the goals that I set forth for myself and my clients. It's not about me. It's about getting my clients what they desire and what they need. Titles equal money. Anybody that says they're wrestling and they don't care about winning a title is a fool. Because with the title comes more money. I can get you money for endorsements. I can get you money for merchandise. I can get you bookings at places that are willing to pay to bring a champion in. So, and again, it's not about me. It's about making sure that my clients are taken care of.
Absolutely, 100%.
These idiots don't understand. You get some of these guys go, oh, Chazz is arrogant. Oh, Chazz is this. Oh, Chazz is that. Let me tell you something. Maybe, but Chazz makes money for his clients.
Yeah, you know what? And the universal language is money. So.
Exactly right.
Lord. So, well, obviously that's a really interesting fact. I don't think I've ever met anybody who's played soccer that long, but, pretty interesting if you ask me. So as we kind of wind down a little bit, another thing that, I have found, I guess, as when I was going over some of the information for this episode and, researching you, you've posted some pictures of your cooking. So what are some of your favorite dishes to cook?
You know what? Cooking for me is just it's a release. It's my chance to be a little artistic. And my wife loves it because she doesn't have to bother doing it.
Right.
But I dabble a little bit of everything. I like to experiment. But, one of the things that I enjoy making is I enjoy making various chicken dishes. I mean, I'll make it with a cream sauce with spinach, or I'll make it Parmesan, or I'll make it just, old-fashioned Southern breaded. And those are a lot of the things that I like to do. I definitely like pasta and seafood. Now, my wife and daughter won't eat either one of them. They'll eat pasta. They won't eat the seafood. So that's all for me. But, I make jokes about it. I say, Chazz can cook. Well, it's just my way of being artistic. It's just my way of, some people like to paint. Some people like to play instruments. I like to cook.
Hey, no shame in that. I guess a fun fact about Ike for people out there who don't know, I like to cook as well. I don't post about it on social media too often, but I love to cook. So I'm right on board with you, brother. I love cooking. And like you said, my wife doesn't have to cook, so always good there.
I'll ask my wife, what do you want to eat? I don't know. You're the chef. I said, I'm not a chef. Well, you figure it out. Okay.
Hey, that's right. And they can't be mad at what you cook then.
Oh, there was one that I forget exactly what I made, but it looked like an episode of Chopped. I just grabbed a little bit of everything, put it all together. I'm like, looks good.
Hey, some of the best dishes that I've ever made have come from spontaneous, throw whatever I got in the kitchen together type dishes. Those are some of the best.
Absolutely.
Oh Lord. But enough about cooking. I'm gonna get hungry again.
Yeah, right.
So we've talked a lot, and I've had a really great time getting to know you a little bit better and learn a little bit about your past and everything that you've done. But now it's time to look towards the future. We have a really bright end of the year coming up. I live in Indiana, so we're starting to get in that fall season. It's in the 50s. I'm enjoying this weather.
Yeah.
But what are your goals for the rest of 2021 and 2022?
I had a couple of health scares recently, and I had a bad bout of vertigo. And so right now I have one booking for November 6th for Squared Circle Megastars, and I've decided to take the rest of 2021 off after that date, and I'm going to get going in 2022. And so I'll be making announcements as to where I'm traveling to, because I want to do in 2022, I want to do a tour. So I want to go and travel to as many different promotions that will have me, both in the States and abroad. I definitely want to. I definitely want to go and explore Europe a bit and see about managing some talent out there. I'm not going to get into details right now, but that's pretty much the goal for the future for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we'll wish you hopefully a good rest and recovery, and then, like you said, start 2022 strong, of course. But well, I guess what I want to do now is give you a moment to, as I'm sure you know, as an agent, social media is so important. So, is there anywhere that folks can follow you and keep track of where you're going to be in 2022?
Sure, they can follow me on Facebook at Chazz Moretti. As long as they're respectful, I pretty much accept anybody to be either a follower or put on my friends list. The minute they get disrespectful, they get blocked. That's just how I am. I'm also on Twitter at Real Chazm #1. It's just Real Chazm1. There's no number sign. Same thing with Instagram, same handle, Real Chazm1. That's how you can find me on social media.
Absolutely. So before we close out here, folks out there who are listening, go ahead and give him a follow. And like he said, he's going to have another booking here in November, I believe he said, and then 2022 is going to be a very big year for Chazz, so you will not want to miss out on that. So go follow him on social media, because Chazz Moretti is the best agent out there, according to the conversation that I've had to him today. So, Chazz,
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, Chazz, I really want to say, first of all, thank you for coming on here and talking to me. It's been a legitimate pleasure getting to know you a little bit. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to have a chat with us. Yeah,
anytime. Anytime you guys want to have me back on, just you know how to get a hold of me. I'm more than happy to be available.
Absolutely. Well, we may have to check in with you, especially if you have a really explosive 2022. We may need to hear about some of your your adventures, of course. But
definitely, because the road stories are something that I haven't had too many of, because I tend to travel by myself. I don't really go traveling with a lot of different people. So, I mean, my travels are pretty boring. I just like to make towns. But you never know. You never know what kind of road stories are out there.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to hand it back over to Dave Dynasty, and he's going to close us off with Wrestling Nostalgia.
Support all of the podcasts here on the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network. The best way to do that is go to our Pro Wrestling Tees store. It is at ProWrestlingTees.com/TheDaveDynasty. There you will find all of the shirts that we offer: I Heart Old School Wrestling, Bruiser Buddy, the Podcast Mask shirt, and of course, the official shirts for the Ontario Wildman and the Ring a Ding Dong Dandy podcast. Visit ProWrestlingTees.com/TheDaveDynasty, order a shirt, and support the network. If you would also like to support, you can join our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/DaveDynasty. There you will get exclusive audio and video clips, early releases on podcasts, and much, much more. And if you would just like to make one-time contributions to support us, you can go to paypal.me/TheDaveDynasty. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for listening. Continue to support independent wrestling podcast. All right, and welcome back to Wrestling Nostalgia. I am Dave Dynasty. Thank you to Ike Isaacs for conducting that interview for the show. Thank you to Chazz Moretti for being on the show. Again, I always love it when we have managers on. It's very dear to my heart. It's how I got started. Let me share real quick one managing memory I have. We were doing a show one time, and I was managing the Outlaw Jesse Houston, who was a regular guy I managed a lot in the early days. And he was wrestling Bobo Brazil Jr., the former Calypso Jim, for those of you that your WWA history. And anyway, we're doing the match, right? And we do everything to begin and blah, blah, blah. And I'm outside the ring, and Bo had come in, and he's over at the ropes. He's leaning over, and he's, jawing at me, and I'm jawing back. And all of a sudden, he leans out. He leans to the ropes. He's pointing his finger, like he's all angry at me. And he says, "Pick up my B." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Pick up my B off of my jacket. The letter B. It fell off on my way in." It was an iron-on letter from his jacket, and I picked it up and gave it back to him. But it was so funny because he's like, "Pick up my B," and I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about, Bo?" It's some of the weird-ass stuff that you experience in professional wrestling. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So now it's time for the wrestling promo segment of the show. And the one we're going to do today is it's not super bad. It's not like as off the wall as some of the ones we've had, but it's kind of boring. And that's because it's Paul Jones. Now, I have all the respect in the world for Paul Jones, but he did not transition well over to a manager in his army and the eternal feud that he had with Jimmy Valiant. But this is a promo we did for an upcoming show that his team, the Powers of Pain, they were going to wrestle the Road Warriors. So here it is. And I wanted to put a promo on here like this because I wanted to keep with the manager theme with our guest today. So here it is. This is our promo of the week, so to speak. This is Paul Jones with the Powers of Pain.
Nassau Coliseum. The Road Warriors are trying to save face. Chicago street fight with friends, lumberjacks around the ring. They think that that's going to scare the number one, baddest, world's strongest wrestlers. Power of Pain. Well, let me tell you something, Road Warriors. It's going to be one heck of a fight. But you're not the team that you used to be. I understand. Animal is going to be back. Well, Animal, I know, and you know you're not 100%. And I know that you told Hawk already the power, the pain that you have suffered in the weeks and weeks that you were laying in bed. Well, brother, Nassau Coliseum, you're going to see Road Warriors lose their first Chicago street fight right in the middle of the ring. I made predictions before. They've all come true. And this one is no exception.
And there you have it. Number one, Paul Jones, talking about his Powers of Pain as they prepare to face the Road Warriors. I was never a Paul Jones fan as a manager. I'm sorry, just never. Never was into it. Couldn't get into it. He bored me. I'm sorry, Paul Jones. All the due respect in the world. You had a great career overall, but your managerial work left a lot to be desired. Thank you for joining us this week on Wrestling Nostalgia. I am Dave Dynasty. We hope you enjoyed the show and our guest, Chazz Moretti. And we hope you're checking out the other shows on the Dynasty Wrestling Podcast Network. We just had an episode released from the Ontario Wildmen, Jess and Wes. Part 1 of their discussion of the life and career of Whipper Watson. Part 2 of that will be out here in just a few days. But we hope you're checking them out. We hope you're checking out the Ring a Ding Dong Dandy Stampede Wrestling Podcast. Lots of great stuff. We've got all your Canadian history covered here in the network. So we hope you're checking those out and enjoying them, as well as Wrestling Nostalgia. Again, we hope you're following us on all of our social medias that were discussed earlier. We have lots of discussions, share lots of things. I want to hear from you guys, right? So add me on those, follow us on those, and talk to me about things. We hope you're sharing the podcasts, and we hope that you are subscribed to us on whatever platform you choose. We're on all of them. So whichever one is your preference, we hope you subscribe to us there. We hope you share the episodes. We hope you leave comments and ratings and all the great things that we need to help us network and grow. Again, you can support the show, ProWrestlingTees.com/The Dave Dynasty, or you can make contributions through PayPal or Patreon. It helps keep the show free. Everything that you do that you donate or give to us, or when you buy a shirt, it all goes right back into the show. We're not making anything. It's just to keep things running here, to pay for all of our hosting services and etc. Equipment, all that good jazz. So anyway, thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week with another episode here. I'm hoping we're going to dive into some historical episodes. I've got some things brewing with some people. Just need to clear out some time to record with these guys. Some great stuff you're going to enjoy. So maybe we'll have a historical episode next week. I do hope so. But until then, hey, and also remember, it is Spooktober, right? The month of October, starts the greatest time of the year from here on out to the end of the year. I love Halloween. I love Christmas following that. I love Thanksgiving in the middle. I just want to throw that out there. Guys, enjoy yourselves, but continue to be safe. Continue to make smart decisions. But wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.